Friends, today we are not dealing with just any case. We will be covering the true story of what is arguably the most legendary, mythical, and terrifying serial killer in history. The man who inspired most of cinema's monsters and psychopaths for decades. Today on this channel, the real and true story of Ed Gein. On August 27th, 1906, Edward Theodore Gein was born. So, our friend Edward Theodore Gein was born in the small city of about 30,000 people called La Crosse, Wisconsin. His family is absolutely key to understanding this story, especially his father, mother, and brother, one of the great mysteries of this entire case. His father, George, was an alcoholic and violent man, incapable of holding a steady job. A chaotic, absent man, which in that house was probably a blessing, because when he was around and drunk, which was often, hell itself broke loose. But his mother was even worse. Augusta Gein was even more important than Ed himself in understanding what this is all about. She was more crucial than the psychopath, more than the killer, more than the repugnant being her son would later become. Augusta was a religious fanatic, and fanatic might even be too soft a word. She went far beyond mere fanaticism into obsession and quite possibly mental illness. She raised her two sons almost alone, but what she instilled in them was terrifying. She taught that all women, except for herself, were prostitutes, evil, and sinful. She spent her life trying to keep both Edward and his brother away from women, and not just from women, but from everyone. She wanted a closed-off family where she was the goddess, the only source of truth and morality. And in Edward's case, it worked perfectly. He adored his mother, no, more than that, he worshipped her. His obsession went beyond devotion. She was his totem, his guiding light. Naturally, this destroyed his ability to relate to anyone else. His relationships with classmates and townsfolk, especially later when the family moved to the tiny town of Plainfield, population about 500, were non-existent. Everyone knew the Gein family was strange. Edward's brother Henry Gein was 5 years older and quite different. He resisted his mother's control, often arguing with her. This created major tension with Edward, who considered everything their mother said sacred. Classmates described Edward as withdrawn, odd, often laughing to himself, muttering incoherently. He had no friends and did not want any, especially not female ones. Years passed. The family left La Crosse for rural Plainfield, where Augusta was thrilled to escape the corrupt city life, the noise, the cars, the women's clothes, the supposed immorality. On their large 155-acre farm, the family became more and more isolated. In 1940, George, the father, died of heart failure, no doubt caused by years of drinking. Then, 4 years later, in 1944, tragedy struck again, or perhaps murder. While burning brush on the farm, a fire spread out of control. Henry died. Edward claimed it was an accident, saying his brother disappeared in the smoke and that he later found him dead. But Henry's body was found far from the fire's origin, with a head injury. Officially, the cause was asphyxiation, but most who have studied the case have no doubt Edward killed his brother, likely during an argument about their mother. A year later, Augusta died of a heart attack, and with her death, Edward's last tether to reality was severed. He sealed off his mother's room like a shrine, perfectly clean and untouched, while the rest of the house fell into filth and decay, rats, garbage, rot. It became the house of horrors, like something out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Edward began spending more time in town, though he rarely spoke unless the topic was World War II, torture experiments, or infamous killers. He read crime magazines, horror comics like Tales from the Crypt, and collected articles about murders, especially of women. Then, on December 8, 1954, Mary Hogan, a 54-year-old tavern owner, vanished. Ed was fascinated by her. She was bold, independent, and strong-willed, traits that reminded him in some twisted way of his mother. When people asked about her disappearance, he sometimes joked, "She is at my farm." Everyone laughed, thinking he was just the town fool. 3 years later, in 1957, Bernice Worden, owner of the local hardware store, disappeared too. Her son Frank found blood, the cash register open, and a sales slip made out to Ed Gein, who had bought antifreeze that morning. When police confronted Ed, he immediately said, "They have pinned it on me." "Pinned what on you?" they asked. "The murder of Mrs. Worden," he replied, even though no one had yet said she was dead. When officers searched his farmhouse, what they found made several of them vomit. Bernice's body hung upside down, decapitated, gutted like an animal. There were human skulls turned into bowls and ashtrays, masks made from human skin, a vest made from female torsos, leggings made of human skin, a belt made of nipples, boxes of genitalia, furniture upholstered with human flesh. And through all this filth and horror, one spotless room, his mother's. He denied committing necrophilia, saying the bodies smelled too bad and may have died a virgin. Still, many experts believe there was a sexual component, though perhaps more symbolic than physical, a deranged attempt to become his mother, to resurrect her through his victims. Ed Gein was declared legally insane and spent the rest of his life in a psychiatric hospital, dying of respiratory failure in 1984 at age 77. His grave became a macabre tourist attraction until his headstone was stolen. His car was even sold at a fair, exhibited like a freak show attraction. And from his crimes came some of cinema's most iconic monsters: Norman Bates from Psycho, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. Ed Gein was not just a murderer, he was the dark blueprint for decades of horror. These were some of the items found inside his house. The photos cannot be shown as they would be taken down. Whole human bones and fragments. A wastebasket made of human skin covering several chairs, human skulls mounted on bedposts. Female skulls, some with the tops sawn off bowls made from human skulls. A corset made from a female torso, skinned from shoulders to waist. Leggings made from human leg skin. Masks made from the skin of female heads. Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag. Mary Hogan's skull in a box. Bernice Worden's entire head in a burlap sack. Bernice Worden's heart in a plastic bag in front of Gein's potbelly stove. 9 vulvae in a shoebox. A young girl's dress and the vulvas of 2 females judged to have been about 15 years old. A belt made from female human nipples. 4 noses. A pair of lips on a window shade drawstring. A lampshade made from the skin of a human face. Fingernails from female fingers. What you heard tonight was just the beginning. Subscribe now and step deeper into the world of true crime and horror. Until next time, keep your lights on.